Dear students, I am JV. Welcome all of you to this video lecture. Today I will discuss a very important poem, The Listeners. It is written by Walter de la Mare. So before going to the line by line explanation, let's have a brief introduction of the poem. This poem, The Listeners, was published by Walter de la Mare in 1912. It remains one of the most famous pieces of writing and reflects the author's fascination with mystery and the supernatural. Now you should know what is the main story of this poem. Actually, this poem tells us about a story of an unnamed traveler who knocks at the door in a place which was fully unknown to him. We can see in this poem the traveler comes to a house to visit a person as he made a promise earlier. He knocks at the door several times but gets no response at all. Then gradually he felt like there were phantoms, means ghostly beings, which were listening to him. Then the traveler takes his horse and leaves the place. So this is the main story. Now let's go to the text. The poem starts with a very common question. Is there anybody there? Said the traveler, knocking on the moonlit door. Means an unnamed person. Here the traveler knocks at the door of a house in the moonlight and asks whether there is anyone inside. The next line you see, and his horse in the silence champed the grasses of the forest ferny floor. It means the traveler's horse was chewing the grasses in the quiet forest while the traveler was waiting for a response at the door. Here, champed the grasses means chewing the grasses noisily, and ferny means covered with ferns. Here, the forest ferny floor indicates that the wilderness has grown up around the house. The next line you see, and a bird flew off out of the turret above the traveler's head. It means a bird flies out of a small tower on the house and over the traveler's head. Here, turret means a small tower. After that, the next lines, and he smote upon the door again a second time. Is there anybody there? He said. It means the second time again the traveler knocks at the door more forcefully and repeats the same question. What is the question? Is there anybody there? Here, smote upon the door, it means hitting something violently or heavily. The next line you see, but no one descended to the traveler. It means no one comes down from the house to meet the traveler. Here, descended means to come down. Now follow the next lines. No head from the lip-fringed sill leaned over and looked into his grey eyes. Means even no one leans out of the window to see that who is calling. There was no response from the house. Here, lip-fringed sill means the window sill which was covered with creepers. And grey eyes indicates that the traveler was expecting someone to peep out of the window to see who was knocking. Follow the next line. Where he stood perplexed and still. This means that the traveler was perplexed, means confused, why no one was opening the door. And he was standing still, means without moving, while he was knocking the door. Follow the next line. But only a host of phantom listeners that dwelt in the lone house then. It means inside the lonely house there is a group of ghostly beings, means phantom listeners. Here a host of phantoms, it indicates a group of ghostly beings. and dwelt in the lone means to live in a lonely place. Now follow the next lines. Stood listening in the quiet of the moonlight to that voice from the world of men. It means the ghostly beings, the phantom listeners, stand in the moonlight as they listen to the human voice coming from outside. Here, in the quiet of moonlight, it indicates a peaceful environment of moonlight. Now follow the next lines. Stood thronging the faint moonbeams on the dark stair that goes down to the empty hall, hearkening in an ear stirred and shaken by the lonely traveller's call. Means the ghostly beings crowd around the staircase onto which the moonlight streaks. As the quiet atmosphere in the empty house is disturbed by the sound of the traveller's lonely voice. Here you see, thronging means jamming a space with things or people in short crowding. And hearkening means to listen something with particular attention. Now follow the next lines. And he felt in his heart their strangeness, their stillness answering his cry. Means outside the traveller feels a strange presence in the silence that meets his question. After that, while his horse moved, cropping the dark turf, neath the starred and leafy sky. Means his horse, undisturbed, continues to graze in the dark forest. On the other hand, the sky above, full of stars and obscured by trees. Here, cropping the dark turf, it means the horse was eating the overgrown grass outside the house. Now follow the next lines. For he suddenly smote on the door even louder and lifted his head. Means once again the traveller suddenly knocks at the door even more loudly than before. Here, smote on the door, it means to knock loudly at the door. Let's see the next line. Tell them I came, and no one answered, that I kept my word, he said. Means, then the traveller loudly says that no one answered him when he came to the house, but he kept his promise. Now for the next lines. Nevertheless, Steyr made the listeners through every word he spake. This means the listeners don't make any motion in response to his word. After that, fell echoing through the shadowiness of the still house from one man left awake. This means the traveller's words reverberate through the dark, empty house coming from the only living person around. Here the shadowiness of the still house tells us that the house had been deserted for a long time, and the one man left awake, it refers to the traveller. Now follow the next lines. They heard his foot upon the stairway and the sound of iron on stone. Here the poet wants to say the phantom listeners hear the traveller to jump off onto the horse, and then the sound of the horse shoes on the stone path as the traveller rides away. Actually, A basically means yes, and it also used to mean always. Now follow the last two lines. And how the silence surged softly backward when the plunging hoofs were gone. It means the silence of the forest quickly returns as the sound of the horse's forceful riding fades away. The silence surged softly backwards. This means the noise of the horse's rapid progress gradually started fading as the traveller went further away from the house. And plunging hoofs, it means the rapid progress of the traveller's horse away from the house. So this is the end of the poem. Actually, the poem highlights two different worlds. First one is the living, means the traveller, and second one is the dead, means the listeners. The poem basically tells us that the living and the dead are in a separate world and there is no way the dead can come back. Indirectly, the poem tells us that a change is a must. Nothing will be with you forever, and thus time is valuable. And the poem also teaches us to keep the promise which we make. So students, I hope you have understood this lesson very well. If you still have any confusion, let me know through the WhatsApp group. In the next video, I'll come back with a new lesson. Till then, stay home, stay safe, bye.